Part 5. What to do. The result is the beginning of a new action. Section 5.1. Where to begin. Block 5.1,1. We say to novice homonists, start with yourself. Create for yourself a scale of life values and determine priorities, that is, what is paramount, main, necessary, and what is secondary, in terms of actions, necessary to build a worthy common future. Just remember that, any day after tomorrow comes and turns into today. And what's this day after tomorrow will be like, depends on your and our yesterday's, today's, and tomorrow's affairs. Therefore, do not do what is contrary to your conscience, do not follow criminal orders. Live according to the principles of homonism. Learn, realize, remember, write down in your genes the basic rules, homonistic principle of relationships between people, each is for the other, only this form of relationship guarantees a harmonious, healthy, and endless development of society. When communicating, remember, that under the same word, different people can mean different concepts, and the same concept can be called with a different words by a different people. Please understand. Decide what is white and what is black, and do not let anyone decide it for you. Remember, the basis of social stability and calm historical development is common social justice. Understand, money is not a deity, but just a conventional unit of account, the future will be free of it. Remember that the soul is immortal, a person is born naked in our world and leaves in the same way into the other world, and takes there only what is in its soul. And therefore, enrich your soul, improve your spirit, remembering that the light needs strong, kind, self-sufficient, creative souls, and the darkness needs slaves, who carry out any orders, and whose souls the darkness will devour anyway. In your life, do not believe anyone thoughtlessly, a lie can be at any level and any degree of preparation. Do not be afraid of anyone, fears are the tentacles of darkness, there is no worse for the darkness than a pure, kind, bright, and fearless heart. Try not to ask anyone for anything, so as not to be obliged to anyone, so as not to be dependent on anyone. Organize yourself, relying mainly on your own strengths and capabilities, and the strengths and capabilities of your trusted friends. Unite, listening only to your personal heart. For in the camp of your today's political colleagues and allies, formed by the media and superficial knowledge and acquaintances, may be many of your heart enemies, and in the camp of your today's political opponents and enemies, may be many of your heartfelt allies and like-minded people. In short, in principle, it is enough, for everyone in its place, to ignore and not carry out negative, inhuman, and criminal orders, and to join the soul in the ranks of the forces of light. About those, who manage to conclude a contract with the devil, is a separate topic, but God, by its power, can annul it, the contract, if you personally show the worth of your soul in life. Generally, turn on your brains, listen to your heart, improve your personal spirit, and become worthy of the light. Section 5.2. Self-organization and struggle. Block 5.2,1. There are many states on the planet. And everywhere, its own specificity of existing problems, situations, conditions. Of course, peaceful and legal self-organization of homonistic circles, movements, and parties, is desirable. But if somewhere, for some reason, there is no way to do it legally and peacefully, then underground and militant self-organization is allowed, with the election of commanders and the conscious discipline of the fighters. But, at the same time, it is imperative to remember that the shedding of blood is a super extreme, super unwanted, and super controlled measure. And the shedding of the blood of the innocent is a crime and a shame. The purpose of the struggle is construction of homonism, a socially fair light social system, worthy of the high title of human and harmoniously fitting into the Earth's nature and the further program of the infinite development of human civilization. When choosing allies and opponents, and in all your actions, you must take into account. It's not only people who get ill. Systems, folks, egregores, can get ill also. Diseases, of course, can be different, from mild to fatal. Having caught the authorities in a lie, do not believe that authorities at all, let the authorities be afraid to lie to you. In any situations and confrontations, war, revolution, etc., the main thing is, to figure out, where are the dark forces and where are the light ones. And since good and evil are relative in our world, and light forces are at war with darkness, then, as in any war, the positions of forces are changing. And it is necessary to analyze, feel, and understand, What is leading to light, is light, what is leading to dark, is darkness, and in controversial issues, do dispute, after all, in the dispute emerges the truth is. Consider also, that when there is no war, no natural disasters, no global technical catastrophes, and the authorities tell you that you need to be patient now, tighten your belts while this government carries out some kind of reforms, but then, someday, after these reforms, general prosperity will come, don't believe it. Most likely, they are lying. Of course, situations are different, it's hard to take everything into account, to foresee everything, but, usually, in most cases, if improvements begin, then they begin immediately, and not some time later. Moreover, what is strange, when ordinary people have to endure the problems that have fallen on them, then the money bags, at the same time, sharply increase their capital. There are no crises in the economy, and there are no wars unleashed, in the result of which someone would not get profit. Where is the justice here? If to endure, then everyone. In the process of the struggle, it is necessary to achieve the legal constitutional consolidation of the humanistic principles of justice, the foundations of the new jurisprudence and the foundations of the principles of the new economy. We must start to struggle now, from this moment, and already to the end, to the victory. To struggle, preferably, legally, calmly, but firmly, constantly and consistently, using the internet, mass media, meetings, public actions, elections, the creation of parties and public organizations. We must go and delegate the homonists to the governmental bodies, and to control the government and all its actions, by the method of making public, via the internet, the media, etc., all unworthy actions of the government and subject these actions to popular opposition. In general, act as appropriate. But act in such a way, that your methods and means would not strengthen and feed the egregores of the dark forces, they are, even without it, too strong and too cunning. Conscience, dignity, and harmony should always be the rule. In the upcoming struggle, it will be very effective to create a civil association to fight the corruption, bureaucracy, sabotage, and indifference. Principle of operation, to explain. To ask politely. And to achieve persistently. Section 5.3. 3 ways to come to power. Revolution. Elections. Decree of the autocrat. Block 5.3,1. A revolution is a revolution. But very often there is no other way out. Evil does not want to retreat without a struggle. We have already told you about the favorite methods of evil. Let's repeat a little more and add. There are proverbs, the revolution devours its children, and the revolution is invented by the notionalists, implemented by the romantics, and the scoundrels use its fruits. Because, while the good people are doing the job, the not good on the sly, seize the power. Because for some, the direction of thinking is, how to change the situation for the better for the whole people, while others have a clear goal, their personal coming to power to solve their personal mercantile problems. And therefore, making a revolution, do not tie the entire revolutionary process only to some specific individuals. Remember that the forces implement the global history. The main thing is to change the system itself for the new light force's arrival. And without changing the system itself and without eliminating the influence of the power of darkness, you can change specific people, one for another, an infinite number of times, without any sense. All this should be in the consciousness and subconsciousness of the revolutionary masses. You need to direct your energy against the system you hate, but not against a specific person. And removing a hated person from power, is a matter of course. Along the way, with the destruction of the hated system, the challenge is, to create a system that will work itself, for the good of society, regardless of any particular individual. And so that crooks, careerists, people with double morals, etc. would not get into the new system of power, to introduce the principles of humanism, including the principle, that the higher is the post, the higher are the requirements and responsibility, and not the possibility of enrichment and sweet life as it is now. Under the humanism, a person will be the first and most of all respected for the qualities of its soul, for the mind, professionalism, and his contribution to the common cause. And its positions, are temporary. And its material wealth, if only it was honest, in general, is its own business. Block 5.3,2. The coming of homonists to power through free legal elections, is the best option. But the question arises, where to get the required amount of money. It will be good if the state will bear the costs, if there will be rich people who, following the example of certain biblical characters, who distributed their wealth to the people and followed the Christ, will make the financing of the election campaign of homonists. It will be good if people will show consciousness and maturity and will bring the homonists to power. And in other cases, first it is necessary to conduct and win the struggle to eliminate the influence of the amount of money on the election results. How to do it? According to the circumstances. Turn on your brains. Also, according to the circumstances and turning on the brains, it is necessary to seek the exclusion of illegal influence on the election results from any of the existing forces. True, in these cases, a problem arises: how to limit the number of candidates within the reasonable limits. Turn on your brains. Maybe a hierarchical system will suit. Maybe something else, up to the drawing of lots. If there are a lot of candidates, let them draw the lots. Remember, you will be worthy of what you have chosen. Block 5.3,3. There are the states where emirs, kings, sultans, princes, and dictators rule individually. History knows the examples of abdication and voluntary transfer of power. It is possible that this chance will be realized somewhere. Or, maybe, the king will decide to become a homonist. Everyone has a chance to start a new life. Section 5.4. The next steps. Block 5.4,1. It is impossible to embrace the infinity. It is impossible to foresee everything. The main things, we've told you. Next, act according to the circumstances. No, after all, this is logical, that by changing the direction of thinking of the majority of humanity, you will also change the program of its development, from the program of the final path of development of modern human civilization, called the apocalypse, to the program of the endless path of civilization development, described in NicA. The possibility of such a replacement of global programs, as we have already said, is provided, in a veiled form, in chapter 10 of the Revelation of St. John the Evangelist, in the New Testament, in the Bible. But even after the inclusion of a new program of the infinite path of development, the struggle between the light and the darkness will continue. And it will depend on everyone, whether humanity will continue to follow the path of its infinite development, or will again descend into the apocalypse. And, at the end of the description of the option for the further actions proposed to you, we introduce several clarifications that, in the future, will help you. Block 5.4,2. Having come to power, you will face the problem that in many countries, there are many state structures, rotten through, corrupted, connected with organized crime, completely captured by the forces of evil. And the egregores of these structures are the same. And therefore, the best way out is to disband these structures completely and to create new ones, with the same or similar functions, but with a new emerging egregore, devoid of that former powerful negativity, and with a new personnel. And in order not to lose the accumulated positive experience and knowledge, it is necessary to create of the former worthy employees an institute of consultants, who will advise newcomers and pass on positive experience for them. And, for now, at the present stage of development, in the power structures, while the spirit of corruption, etc. will not be completely eliminated, a constant and mandatory rotation of employees of these structures is necessary, that is, a change in the place of service of the officers every 3 to 4 years, to the purpose of elimination of spontaneous creation of the corruption ties and systems of esprit de corps. Of course, for this, and for other purposes too, a very wide network of departmental public housing will be needed. So this network, needs to be created, revived, built. Block 5.4,3. Considering and analyzing wars and other conflicts, for the establishing of the truth, what was done, what was violated, and by whom, etc., it is necessary, in addition to the obvious parties involved, also to take into account the possible hidden presence of a third force, usually specializing the provocations that contribute to inciting and prolongation of the conflict. Creating the economic unions, it is necessary to take into account not only economic interests, but also the mentality of the folks and nationalities. If the differences in views on the further path and unification are too big, it is not necessary to suppress someone, or to redraw state borders. It is much wiser, in these cases, to create autonomies and federations. In any case, under the homonism, the right of peoples to self-determination should not be infringed upon. Even if some peoples, somewhere in something are wrong, then having made a mistake, people will understand it very quickly. We must remember that the language issue is a very painful and explosive topic. Everyone has the right to use its own language. Of course, without bringing this question to the point of absurdity. Because the absurdity will hit those who created it first. And for inter-ethnic, interstate, and other international communications, internet, science, production, technology, etc., it is desirable to have as few international languages as possible. These can be languages which are already existing, and hybrid, and artificial, how people would decide. In short, in language politics, no forceful methods. Only self-regulation based on common sense, convenience, and mutual understanding. It must be remembered that world culture is a mosaic picture consisting of different cultures. And therefore, we have to act according to the rule, remember yours, respect others. But anger, hatred, darkness, are not permissible in any culture and must be eradicated. All humanistic cultures must have a light spiritual and ethical content. And to distinguish true art from any surrogate, use a simple and universal formula: art is what does not leave indifferent and makes people equals a person better. Block 5.4,4. After the creation of economic state unions and the introduction of intra-union non-cash currencies, the state unions themselves, in turn, will create a world inter-union currency and an inter-union committee with functions and powers delegated to it. And thus, on our entire small single planet, will arise a single lawful focal point for the planning and development of human civilization and control over this process. This, in principle, will already be legal, official, and controlled from below, world government. Let's say straight and honestly, for various reasons, not all states will join the economic unions. But, about some states, which does not bother anyone, it will be possible to say that this is their own business. But with other states and territories that live off the cultivation of drugs, trade and production of drugs, the slave trade, piracy, and the like, or which simply do the harm to the environment, you'll have to find the solution of the problem. But, before the applying punitive sanctions to them, social justice requires that at first, they should have a choice and a real chance and opportunity to live according to the normal laws in normal conditions and without their criminal craft. By the way, as for personalities, the same thing. Among the main tasks of the world government will be replacement of the global economic supercomplex for the production of weapons, with a global economic supercomplex for processing and neutralizing the waste of civilization and solution environmental safety issues. After all, when strict birth control and the planned management of the world economy will be introduced, such an insane amount of weapons will no longer be needed by anyone. And it will take more than one generation to restore natural purity on the earth. Creation of the service of perforced resettlement of the peoples, in connection with global climate change and global disasters. Limiting the areas of active human activity, to provide wild nature with a controlled opportunity to develop freely. After all, we will not survive without healthy nature. Entering into normal contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. Contact based on the light universal spirituality. Block 5.4,5. In all types of the construction, the following should be considered. Before starting any construction of industrial, residential, and any other objects, construction of which will emit any waste, we must first build a biological safety complex, BSC, consisting of places for temporary safe storage of waste and a complex for the utilization, neutralization, and treatment, UNT, of all types of waste, which, according to preliminary calculations, will arise after the construction and commissioning of facilities. And only after that, should start any construction that does not exceed the design capacity of the above-mentioned environmental safety facilities. In the future, it will be necessary to replace gradually all existing technological processes and their chains with environmentally friendly technologies. In principle, each manufactured product must have an environmental product passport, providing for the environmental safety of the production, operation, and utilization of this product. What was taken from the nature, must be returned to the nature. If you invented something, before launching into production, you have to come up with and to ensure the recycling and environmental safety of your invention. It is impossible to sprinkle the roads with salt, chemicals, and sand in the countries with cold winters, for the centuries. We need to develop rail modes of transport. We must either build the roads that do not hold ice or snow, or build appropriate all-terrain vehicles. The easiest way is the ultralight tracks on transport and anti-slip pads on people's shoe soles. In all types of structures and transport, introduce the engineering concept of living capsule equals places of long stay of people. Such capsules should be maximally protected from all kinds of negative accidents and influences. Block 5.4,6. The modern universal unit of accounting for everything is the money. It is universal now, but humanity is rapidly developing in all directions, and the primitive single universality will no longer be so suitable soon. And in the future, it will not work at all. One of the proposed options for accounting for everything is a network scale of accounting units. That means, a unit of account should be chosen for each sector of civilization's activity. For example, ecological unit, for the rating of the wealth of nature and the harm caused to the nature. Cultural unit, for the rating of the cultural values. Energy unit, to rate the energy consumption and energy potential. Material unit, for the rating of the products that do not have special cultural and historical value, such as cars, electronics, furniture, etc. Resource consuming unit, to account of various resources and their use. Food unit, for accounting of food resources. Social unit, to rate the position of certain social groups. And, most importantly, the life unit, formed by the derivative of the results of calculations across the entire network scale. This life unit of accounting will be more informative than the primitive monetary unit and is quite worthy to come, in the future, to replace the money. Block 5.4,7. The future society will be more perfect and the need for money will gradually disappear. But, gradually introducing free services and goods, you must strictly follow the rules. Before producing something free and generally available, in this area, it is necessary to completely eliminate the deficit. First, it is necessary to educate the whole society to consciously limit the excessive consumption of material goods, in accordance with the general state of affairs. Block 5.4,8. During the initial and transitional periods, even in the most extreme cases, it is not necessary to nationalize property, it is quite enough to make the nationalization of the management of this property. And to regulate everything else by adopting the appropriate laws. But, if these laws will be maliciously violated by the owners, then, to nationalize. For the harmonious development of society, it is important, naturally and gradually, to reach such a level of consciousness and concepts when the owners themselves will consider it natural and necessary to nationalize their industries. In the future, when the religion and the science will cease to compete with each other, in order to preserve positive religious egregors, and merge all light egregors into the single egregor of the earthly light, it will be advisable to equate the clergy with the government officials, and entrust them with the mission of protecting, extending, and developing the spiritual and material cultural and religious heritage of our civilization. A gradual reduction in the duration of the obligatory working time, without compromising the standards of living, a gradual increase in the duration and the number of vacations, for increase the possibilities of free spiritual, physical, intellectual, and creative development of the human and mankind. Block 5.4,9. And finally, a parting word. 3 simple rules. Everything has its consequences. Instead of curse the darkness, light a candle. To finish the journey you have to keep putting one foot in front of another. The end of equals NicA equals.